They swore I'd be nothing. But in court, they broke down crying. One flash drive exposed it all, and my final words left the entire room speechless. You should be grateful we even let you live here, Marissa. And now you're just going to run off like a filthy stray dog? That's the sentence that shattered whatever scraps of dignity I had left. I stood in the middle of the cluttered living room of my Aunt Lenore's house. If you could even call it a house and not just a cage lined with floral wallpaper and thick, suffocating judgment. My suitcase sat by the door, half zipped, and my aunt's eyes burned holes through it like I'd just packed a bomb instead of a few faded shirts and secondhand shoes. I need you to understand. I wasn't trying to escape some lavish life. I was surviving. Barely. After my parents died in a car crash when I was 18, Aunt Lenore was the only family I had left. She took me in, as she loved to tell anyone within a 50-foot radius, but that favor came with a permanent price tag. Every meal I ate was a calculated debt. Every shower I took was another rise in the water bill. And God forbid I actually used the living room TV. That was reserved for her family, and I was just the charity case that refused to disappear. For 3 years, I kept my head down, working as a part-time assistant at a furniture warehouse while taking online design classes at night. Every time I saved a little money, Aunt Lenore would find some excuse to guilt me into spending it on her. A birthday dinner she deserved, a new coffee maker because I kept breaking the old one. Or my personal favorite, the time she claimed I owed her gas money for all the rides she never actually gave me. But yesterday was supposed to be my turning point. I'd landed a full-time position at Everhart Designs, one of the most respected interior design firms in the city. When I got the offer call, I nearly dropped my phone in the middle of the grocery store. My hands shook so hard I could barely type my resignation email to the warehouse. I wasn't just moving out. I was moving up, finally claiming a life that belonged to me. Or so I thought. When I told Aunt Lenore over dinner, she acted like I'd announced I was running off to join a cult. She threw her wine glass, red wine staining the cream-colored curtains she always complained I wasn't allowed to touch. And then, like some demon summoned from the shadows, my cousin Clara strolled in, all designer heels and ice-cold smirk. Clara had always played the golden girl, Daddy's little princess before Uncle died, and now the second queen of this oppressive castle. She had a degree in public relations she never used, and a collection of Instagram followers she lorded over like they were a royal court. "What's this I hear about you abandoning Mom after everything she's done for you?" Clara cooed, pulling out her phone and casually scrolling like this was some soap opera she had front row seats to. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was a DM from Clara. "You're trash," it read. "No one wants you. No one ever will. Go ahead and leave. See how far that gets you. And don't forget, I know about that little mental health episode you had after your parents died. Should I make sure your new boss hears about that?" My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might actually throw up right there at the table. I looked up and saw Clara watching me, her lips curled in a knowing smirk. "Problem?" she asked sweetly, tapping her acrylic nails against the table. I clenched my fists under the table. My chest felt tight, my vision blurry. But I wouldn't cry. Not this time. "Say something, Marissa." Aunt Lenore snapped, standing up and pointing a perfectly manicured finger at my suitcase. "You think you're too good for us now? That job doesn't make you special. You'll come crawling back in a month, broke and begging." I wanted to scream, to throw the truth in their faces. But instead, I did the one thing I had left. I stood up, walked past them without another word, and headed straight for my room. But just before I reached the door, Clara's voice floated after me. "Oh, and Marissa?" I turned, barely able to look at her. "You really should be careful about what people say online. One bad rumor, and you'll never work a day in that city." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just emotional abuse anymore. This was calculated sabotage. I locked my bedroom door, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed my phone, backed up every vile message Clara had ever sent me, every disgusting threat, every taunt. I created a secure folder and emailed them to myself. If they wanted war, I was finally ready. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, playing every possible scenario through my head. Could I leave before dawn? Would they try to stop me? Was Clara really sick enough to destroy my future with a few toxic lies? But as the sky started to lighten, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't staying in this house another day. I quietly zipped my suitcase, shoved my laptop and a few essentials inside, and crept down the hallway toward the front door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, the hallway light snapped on. Aunt Lenore stood there in her silk robe, arms crossed, eyes blazing. And behind her? Clara raised her phone, already recording. "Going somewhere?" Aunt Lenore sneered. I froze, my heart leaping to my throat. "Smile for the camera, sweetheart," Clara taunted. Let's show everyone how the poor little orphan likes to betray the family who saved her. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening on the doorknob. Should I run? Should I fight? Or should I give them exactly what they didn't expect? And that's when I felt it. The small, hard shape of my phone in my pocket. Already recording. My thumb hovered over the screen in my pocket, the recording app still running. My pulse felt like a jackhammer beneath my skin. You really think you're just going to walk out of here like you're some kind of movie heroine? Aunt Lenore sneered, stepping closer, her silk robe trailing behind her like a villain straight out of a bad drama. Newsflash, sweetheart, this is real life. And you're nothing without us. I swallowed hard, trying to push down the panic rising in my throat. Behind her, Clara leaned against the wall, phone in hand, recording every humiliating second. Her smirk deepened, and she whispered loud enough for me to hear. God, you're so predictable. This is going to go viral. My brain screamed at me to run, to push past them, to throw open that door and disappear. But my feet wouldn't move. Not yet. You know what's funny? Clara went on, her tone light and syrupy, but every word sharpened like a knife. The city you're so desperate to run off to? I've already put in a few calls, sent a few messages. Don't be surprised if that little job offer of yours suddenly disappears. People don't hire unstable, ungrateful freeloaders. Aunt Lenore crossed her arms, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass. You should be thanking us, Marissa. If we hadn't taken you in, you'd be rotting in some foster home, or worse. And this is how you repay us? Running off and stabbing us in the back? That's when something in me snapped. For years, I'd let them tell this story. That I was the burden, the stray they heroically saved. But they never told anyone about the nights I went to bed hungry because Clara accidentally threw away my groceries. They didn't talk about the way Aunt Lenore forced me to clean the entire house for her book club parties, and then told the guests I was her live-in maid who couldn't afford rent. And I definitely didn't forget the time I caught Clara deleting emails from companies I'd applied to, smiling as she told me, "You're not going anywhere, Marissa. You're stuck here with us. Accept it." I felt my fingers tighten around the cold metal of the doorknob, but instead of turning it, I pulled out my phone, held it up high, and stared them both dead in the eyes. Funny, I said, my voice trembling but loud, because I think my version of this story is going to be a lot more interesting. For a second, just a heartbeat, Aunt Lenore's confident sneer faltered. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Clara snapped, stepping forward. I tapped the phone screen, flipped the camera toward them, and hit play. Their voices echoed back into the hallway. Every venomous word they just spat. Every threat. Every insult. Clara's face went pale. You were recording? She hissed. I've been recording for months. I lied, holding their terrified gazes. I have everything. The threats, the blackmail, even the little game you played with my job offers, Clara. Aunt Lenore's face twisted into something almost inhuman. Her hand shot out, trying to grab my phone. But this time I was faster. I yanked open the front door and bolted into the freezing night air. Behind me, I heard the crash of something heavy hitting the wall. Probably that damn overpriced wine glass she always clutched like a scepter. My lungs burned as I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't stop until I reached the edge of town, collapsed onto a bus bench under a flickering street lamp, and let myself sob for the first time in years. It wasn't just relief. It was grief, rage, and something terrifying but thrilling. Freedom. I opened my phone with shaking hands and went through the recording. But then, just as I was about to back it up to my email, I noticed something. Another notification. A message. From Clara. You think this is over? You have no idea what's coming. Watch your back. My stomach twisted, and then, right as I lifted my head to check my surroundings, a sleek black car slowly rolled past the bus stop, windows tinted, moving just slow enough to feel wrong. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Nice spot you've got there. Cozy. My blood turned to ice. I stood up on shaking legs, looking around frantically. How the hell did she know where I was? I hadn't told anyone. Unless someone had been tracking me. And that's when I remembered. Clara had given me a pair of cute little AirPods for my birthday last year, and I'd used them. Every day. I jammed my hand into my pocket, yanked them out, and stared at them like they were two tiny weapons. She knew exactly where I was. And worse, that car? It made a slow U-turn. Headlights aimed straight at me. I've never moved faster in my life. The car's headlights pinned me in place like a hunted animal. My feet felt glued to the cracked sidewalk, my heart pounding so violently I thought my ribs might break. And then the driver hit the gas. I don't know how, but instinct kicked in. I dropped the AirPods onto the pavement, stomped them under my heel, and sprinted down the darkened side street. My backpack bounced painfully against my shoulders with every desperate step. Behind me, the car roared closer. This wasn't some sick prank anymore. This was real. I ducked into an alley, nearly slipping on the damp pavement. My chest burned, every breath ragged. I pressed my back against the freezing brick wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. The car's engine slowed. I heard the crunch of tires rolling over broken glass, right where I'd destroyed those damn AirPods. Then silence. My heart thudded in my ears. I clamped my hand over my mouth, terrified that even the sound of my breathing might give me away. A door creaked open. Footsteps. Heavy. Purposeful. Getting closer. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, praying I had enough battery left. 1%. My fingers trembled as I opened the camera and peeked around the corner. That's when I saw him. It wasn't Clara. It wasn't even someone I recognized. It was a man, early 40s, tall, wearing a black hoodie pulled low over his face. His left hand held something that made my stomach drop. A tire iron. My mind raced. Who the hell was this? I pressed back against the wall, trying to stay calm. I needed to think. To survive. The man turned his head slowly, scanning the shadows. His phone lit up in his other hand. That's when I saw it. The background wallpaper on his phone. A photo of Clara. She was leaning against a balcony, smiling directly into the camera. Her arm looped around his neck. My blood ran cold. Who was this guy? Suddenly his phone buzzed again. I strained to hear. A voice message played. Clara's unmistakable, venomous voice. If she's stupid enough to come back out, make sure she learns her lesson. But don't be too rough. Not yet. I almost dropped my phone right there. My own cousin had hired someone to... What? Scare me? Hurt me? Worse? The man tucked the tire iron into his jacket and turned back toward the car. I knew this was my only chance. I bolted. Not down the main street this time, but cutting through alley after alley, dodging dumpsters and vaulting over chain-link fences like I'd been training for this my whole life. I didn't stop until I saw the warm glow of a neon sign. Starlight 24-hour diner. I burst through the door, gasping for breath, barely able to explain myself to the wide-eyed waitress before collapsing into a booth by the window. My phone finally died in my hand. But at least here, surrounded by the hum of old music and the clink of coffee cups, I felt safe. At least for the moment. The waitress brought me water and sat down across from me. Her name tag read, Sylvie. She couldn't have been much older than me, but there was something calm, almost maternal about her. You okay, hun? She asked gently. I tried to explain everything between shallow breaths. About the car, about Clara, about the man with the tire iron. Her expression shifted from concern to something else. Recognition. Wait, did you say Clara? Clara Holloway? I froze. Yeah. Why? Sylvie leaned closer, lowering her voice. Hun, you need to know something. That man? He's not just some random thug. His name's Greg Mathers, and he's bad news. I swallowed hard. You know him? She nodded grimly. He's not just Clara's boyfriend. He's her business partner. In all the stuff that doesn't make it to Instagram. What do you mean? Sylvie glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then whispered, Clara runs a reputation management business. You know, cleaning up people's online images. Only, she's the one creating the scandals in the first place. Blackmail. Character assassination. She sets people up, ruins their lives, and then charges them to fix it. Greg's her muscle. I felt the air leave my lungs. That's why all my job opportunities kept disappearing. That's why my name had mysteriously been dragged through the mud even before I left their house. Clara wasn't just toxic. She was running an entire criminal operation, and I'd just become a liability she couldn't afford to leave standing. Sylvie reached out and squeezed my trembling hands. You need to disappear, hun. For real this time. And I think I know someone who can help. Before I could ask who, the bell above the diner door jingled. I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. Standing in the doorway was my Aunt Lenore. Her eyes locked onto mine, cold and triumphant. She smiled. Found you. When I saw Aunt Lenore standing in the doorway of that tiny diner, her lips curled into that cold, victorious smile, something inside me snapped. For the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid. I felt done. Done running. Done hiding. Done letting them control every second of my life. I rose slowly from the booth. My legs were still trembling, but my spine felt straighter than it had in years. Sylvie stood up too, like she was ready to throw hands if it came to that. Lenore stepped forward, tilting her head. Her voice as sickly sweet as ever. Oh, don't look so surprised, darling. Did you really think you could disappear? After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? The words tasted like poison in my mouth. I took a deep breath, my hands balling into fists at my sides. What do you want? She laughed lightly, brushing imaginary lint off her silk blouse. Want? Oh, honey, I'm here to bring you home. You've had your little tantrum. Time to come back before you embarrass yourself any further. I glanced at Sylvie, who shook her head subtly, her eyes darting toward the back exit. But I didn't move. Not this time. You're wasting your breath, I said, loud enough for everyone in the diner to hear. I'm never going back with you. Lenore's smile twitched, something dark flashing in her eyes. You always were ungrateful, just like your mother. And there it was, the low blow she'd been waiting to deliver. You don't get to talk about her, I shot back. My voice didn't shake this time. She's not here to defend herself, but I am. The diner had gone dead silent. Even the cook had stopped clattering pans in the back. Lenore stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. You think this little show of defiance changes anything? You have nothing, Marissa. No money, no future. And once Clara finishes what she started, you won't even have your reputation. You'll be nothing, just like she promised. That's when Sylvie placed a hand on my shoulder and leaned in. Now's the time, she whispered. And just like that, I knew what I had to do. I turned back to Lenore, forcing a small smile. You're right, I said. I don't have much. But you know what I do have? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small flash drive, the one I'd prepared weeks ago, before I even had the courage to run. The one with every recorded conversation, every toxic message, every piece of proof I'd collected about Clara and Lenore's schemes. Lenore's face drained of color. What is that? She hissed, her composure cracking for the first time. This, I said, holding it up for the entire diner to see. Is your empire collapsing? Before she could lunge for me, I tossed it across the counter to Sylvie. Take it, I said. You know who to call. Sylvie caught it one-handed and gave me the slightest nod before disappearing into the kitchen. Lenore looked like she might actually implode. You stupid, worthless little girl, she shrieked. Do you have any idea what you've just done? The other patrons were already pulling out their phones, recording everything. And I made sure to look directly into those cameras when I spoke. Oh, I know exactly what I've done, I said. I've stopped running. And starting right now, you'll be the one answering questions, not me. Lenore's hands shook as she reached for her phone. But before she could dial anyone, the door burst open behind her. 2 police officers strode in, their eyes immediately locking onto her. Lenore Holloway? One of them asked, his voice firm. She barely managed to stammer out a denial before he produced a warrant. For charges including conspiracy to commit fraud, blackmail, and harassment, he said coldly. You're under arrest. And then came the real twist. As they cuffed her, a 3rd officer entered, escorting Clara. She looked nothing like the polished, Instagram-perfect version of herself. Her hair was messy, her face pale, mascara streaked under her eyes. Clara? Lenore gasped, struggling against the cuffs. What are you doing? What did you do? Clara wouldn't even meet her eyes. One of the officers turned to me and said quietly, She came in half an hour ago, made a full confession, flipped on the entire operation. I stood there frozen, watching as the 2 people who tormented me my entire life were led out in handcuffs. But even in that moment of victory, I couldn't shake the final twist out of my head. Why would Clara turn on her own mother? And then, as she passed by me, she muttered under her breath, eyes dull and broken. She wasn't going to stop with you. She was coming for me next. It's strange how victory doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like standing perfectly still in a storm and realizing you're not afraid of the lightning anymore. I sat in the courtroom 6 months later, hands folded in my lap, watching as Aunt Lenore stood before the judge. Her once flawless appearance was gone. No silk blouses, no diamond-studded watches, just a dull gray suit that didn't quite fit, and a court-appointed attorney who looked more exhausted than invested. Her eyes darted around the room like she still expected someone to step in and save her. But there was no one left. Clara wasn't by her side this time. And me? I wasn't the broken girl who had cowered under her roof. I sat front row, chin lifted, shoulders squared, and for the first time in my life I felt whole. The prosecutor laid out every detail. The years of emotional abuse, the calculated blackmail schemes, the false rumors they spread about me, and others. How they extorted small businesses by planting scandals and then charging thousands to fix the reputations they destroyed. But what really sealed it? Clara's testimony. She stood there, voice shaking but loud enough for everyone to hear, admitting everything. How Lenore pushed her into it. How she was promised control, power, admiration. And how, in the end, her mother turned that same darkness against her when she was no longer useful. Lenore's face twisted with rage, but it was useless. The judge's gavel hit the bench like a final nail in the coffin. Lenore Halloway, you are hereby sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit fraud, blackmail, and harassment. Additionally, all remaining assets will be liquidated to compensate the victims of your schemes. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I exhaled. 10 years, a lifetime in the world she once ruled. As the officers cuffed her again, she turned to me one last time. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. You think this makes you better than me? She spat. I stood up, meeting her broken gaze head on. No, I said calmly. It makes me free. And that's when I turned my back on her. Just like she did to me all those years ago. Only this time I walked away for good. I won't sugarcoat it. Healing wasn't immediate. It never is. But every day after that trial felt lighter than the one before. I went back to school. Got that degree I thought I'd never earn. Found a real job in interior design and moved into my own apartment. Small, but filled with peace and flowers I bought for myself every Sunday. And as for Clara, we haven't spoken since that day. But I heard she left the city, started over somewhere far away. I don't forgive her. But I understand her in a way I never thought I would. Some people drown in the poison they're raised on. Others claw their way out. I chose to climb. And now? I'm sitting on the balcony of my own little apartment, sipping coffee, watching the city lights. And for the first time in my life, I'm not wondering when the next storm will hit. I'm just enjoying the calm. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is living a life they swore you'd never have. The lesson I learned? No one has the right to write your ending but you. People may try to cage you in their own misery, but freedom starts the moment you say, enough. And when you finally walk away, don't look back. They don't deserve a second glance.